name is not showing up on the Zoom.
Live to Facebook. All right, thanks. I can hang up with you. All right, thanks, Chris. All right, bye. All right, we're live.
I don't see it on the Facebook though.
Refresh the page.
Oh, I see.
Hear the delay.
We're live. All right, there we go. I don't know if anybody's on here. I'm not sure how we can tell if there's people on here. Okay, there's people up top here. Is the amount of people joining. We'll wait a few minutes and let some people come on.
Mike, can they change the title of it? It should say Market Street Streetscape Information Center. It just says NV5 Public Information Center. I mean, Market Street is on the screen, but
What do you want it to say, Denise?
Market Market Street Streetscape Project, Public Information Center.
Can't change it while it's live, he said.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Market Street up.
All right, well, he suggested we start because it's being recorded anyway, and then the public can kind of catch up as we go. If that's okay?
Sure.
Okay. So for everybody that's listening, welcome. My name is Mike Shine. I work with NV5. We're a consultant firm working with the City of Passaic for a project called the Market Street Streetscape Enhancement Project. A little background. Well, first I'll introduce the team. The team we have here, NV5, I'm project manager, Mike Shine. We have Denise DeCunha. Denise, if you want to introduce.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Cunha.
And then we have Charlie Cunyon and Kevin Perry, who are the landscape architects on this project. The purpose of the project is it's in conjunction with the New Jersey DOT local aid. The purpose of the project is to enhance the Market Street commercial corridor, the east side of the City of Passaic, which is experiencing a redevelopment of residential and commercial developments and recent zoning changes. The intent of the project is to brighten up and enrich the corridor with site furnishings and design treatments, including seating areas, planters, lighting, bike racks, and colored pavement treatments, to name a few. A little background of the project. The project is funded through a 2014 federal grant, which includes construction fees, design assistance. The design assistance is broken up to preliminary engineering and final design. And that's facilitated through the New Jersey Department of Transportation local aid. This project started last year in 2019. The purpose of the Public Information Center is to give an opportunity to the stakeholders, the adjacent property owners, business owners, to provide input on the selection of the streetscape furnishings and the coordination of their location. The Public Information Center here, there's an opportunity to review some exhibits. We put together the limits of the project, some typical intersection designs, and then some of the sample site furnishings. It's open for the public to ask questions, discuss concerns, and certainly questions can be submitted on this platform. Usually this is done in public, and typically it would be at City Hall, and we'd have easels up with presentation boards where the public would come in, kind of walk around. We'd be free to discuss the project somewhat informally. This platform, a little bit different with the Zoom meeting. So it is being recorded. You'll be able to review any of what's said in the meeting, review the graphic. But that's basically the point of the Public Information Center, is to give you guys the opportunity to review the project and weigh in on some concerns and questions.
Mike, just to add to that.
Yeah.
So what we could do is the graphic that's up, we could ask the city to put it on their website. And if people aren't watching us live and they see the video after, they could email any questions. We could have that information on the city website, and they could email any questions that they have. And I think we'll give a date 2 weeks from today, so maybe till July 28th, but we'll have that information on the city website.
Perfect. So I guess at this point, we can kind of go through the project limits. We'll discuss a little bit about the projects. We can get into some details of what we've discussed with the city so far. We've had a few meetings with the city. Kind of the process was we came up with some typical site furnishings to present to the city that they can kind of weigh in on color, design, location. You know, again, the whole idea of this is to kind of brighten and rejuvenate the area. So, color is a good thing. But we can go through that. What we can first start. Now, just so everybody knows, there's a delay. The way we're doing this, there's Zoom. We're kind of meeting through Zoom, and it's broadcast on Facebook Live. There is a delay from when we talk to when you guys hear it. So vice versa, if there's questions coming back, there could be a little bit delay. So bear with us. We apologize for any inconveniences that might cause. But to go through the project, first off, so this is kind of the site furnishings trifold brochure that we put together, and it shows the limits here. I know it's hard to see, I'll zoom in, but this is the Market Street corridor along this length in here. I don't want to zoom in yet. And it goes from South Street all the way down to, I can't even read it myself here. The last one is, help me out here, Charlie. Passaic Street. Did I get that? I think I have it in the wrong order.
Yeah, it's going from Monroe. Monroe to South.
Monroe to South Street, thank you.
Yep.
And so it consists of 6 intersections total. 3 of them are signalized. They're 2-way traffic. The other 3 are 1-way traffic. And along this corridor, there'll be benches, planters, newspaper racks, trash receptacles, lighting, bicycle racks, trees, parking meters, and then considerations for parklets, outside eating. What we did on this brochure, on this board, is we have an example intersection of the 2-way traffic. We have an example intersection of the 1-way traffic. And then there's a unique one here with the bus stop at the intersection. So we'll show you kind of a typical of each one. And first we'll start with 2-way traffic intersection. If I can zoom in here. So the example intersection that we show here. So a couple of the things that we looked at this intersection is there's benches here. They're small, the scale, but there's benches. There's trash cans at each corner. There's a planter. We'll get into the trees. There's also tree replacement up and down the corridor. But at this location, what's shown here with the yellow highlights are some, what we call as bump outs. And there's 2, really the purpose of the bump out is to reduce the crosswalk distance for the people crossing. It's safer. And it also provides a traffic calming feel. It forces people to kind of slow down through the whole corridor and provide more safety for the pedestrians. Charlie, if you want to jump in and kind of add to that.
Yeah. So what you're looking at on screen then is the in yellow are these are the painted bump outs that Mike was talking about, and you'll see on each corner we'll have a bench, we'll have the trash receptacle and planters that are located on each one. Also notice that you'll see this intersection here. Well, actually, the curb line has not really changed at these. So the diagram you're looking at here, really the improvements are strictly within the painted bump outs, new crosswalk striping, as well as some of the furnishings. So the curb line really remains the same. One thing you'll see different when we look at a 1-way street. So right now within the corridor, we have Passaic, Mercer and Monroe as 2-way intersections, and then Essex, Bergen, and Hudson are 1-way. So on the 1-way streets, you'll see, we'll look at an enlargement a little bit. We can actually carry the painted bump out around the corner on the side street of Market. And so there's a little bit of traffic calming on the 1-way streets as well. But on these 2-way streets, we just don't have the width to provide that.
And there's 3 locations that we have the two-way traffic. If we move over to the other end that Charlie was talking about, the one-way intersection, this is where the bump outs wrap around to the side street. And these are a couple of the locations where we plan on putting some of the bike racks. It's off the main thoroughfare, so a little bit safer for the bicyclist, and the bump out can be used as a bike corral lay down area as well.
Yeah, right now we're showing these bike corrals. That's that kind of gray area, gray box at 3 intersections, and they're in each case they're on a one-way street location, but they're spread throughout the corridor to provide opportunity at different locations for people. And this one depicts about 8 bicycles or so, 8 to 10, and so at least we'll provide some storage because the sidewalk area is so limited, along Market Street, that we're really trying to kind of provide somewhere that people can bring their bikes and not, constrict the sidewalk in any way. So so that you'll see this is one of the one ways here where we have a bike corral shown as well. But again, here you'll notice, there's furnishings at each corner, as well as new crosswalks and striping. And again, the curbing doesn't really change in these examples and what's proposed.
And then the third example we have here is at Mercer Street, where there's a bus stop. And on this side of the road, I believe the existing bus is here. We're proposing to move it to the other side of the intersection, and also to have an in-lane bus stop as opposed to pulling over against the curb area. Charlie, if you want to explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So the far side bus stop is a preferred stopping location. So that's the reason for the relocation of the, I guess it'd be the southbound bus to the far side of the intersection. And yeah, we're just providing some additional space there for, some safety factor. If you'll notice alongside the bus stop, there's a little bit more ample room for furnishings and so forth. So it gives a little bit of breathing space there for people on the sidewalk as well. And again, you'll notice just the painted bump outs in this location. We've got a 2-way street for Mercer, so they don't really wrap around in this location.
One of the other things we want to mention is that as part of this project, at each corner of the intersection, there are handicap ramps, ADA accessible ramps that part of this project is to review them and make sure they're in compliance with the American Disabilities Act guidelines. And that has to do with slopes and just the way slopes going from the road up to the sidewalk, and also where they're located for crossing the intersections. So that's another added piece of this project, is to improve or bring up to standards any ramps that right now are insufficient.
Yeah, Mike, I might also just point out that the painted bump out space really, it doesn't take up any parking. So it's not as if parking will change. This is strictly the area or the space that's required by code to not have parking in it. So we're just making use of that space with the painted pavement area.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's so many feet from the intersection where you can't park anywhere. And that's the areas that that's designated that Charlie's referring to. If I expand back to the overall plan, the other thing is along the whole corridor, I'll zoom in this area, you'll see this series of trees. What we did is we went through, and there's a lot of locations where there's existing trees or at least box outs on the sidewalk for trees. Some are actually empty. Some of those spots are empty. Some trees are fine and some trees aren't so fine. As part of this project, we're looking to, replant those areas that right now have either dead or just empty spaces, no trees at all, and then fill in kind of the gaps to make it look uniform throughout the corridor and give some natural look with the trees and shade, and and part of just rejuvenating the corridor. I think there's several blocks like this one here that has no trees in it. And then there's other ones that have a lot. So we're trying to balance that out, and that'll be incorporated as part of this project. As I move through the corridor, you can see these orange circles are new trees, and the green are the existing trees. So you can see in these first two blocks, there's only one tree. So we're looking to add some of that again to bring some color and just you know, rejuvenation to the corridor. What else here? Monroe Street. As far as the construction schedule, the anticipated completion of the preliminary engineering, which is the phase we're in, is to be completed this fall, 2020, with the final design to start shortly after that, you know, the winter of 2021. And the construction phase of this project, we're hoping to start anticipated in the spring of 2021. Some of the site furnishings that we've already kind of gone through with the city, and again, this is open for discussion. We talked about a little bit, there's planters, some benches. There's the trash receptacles, which I guess there's some out there now that are the city is standardizing. Really cool name to these, the Spider-Man cans, we learned they're called, based on their color, which is kind of neat. Has the city logo on it, so we'll incorporate those to keep that consistency going through Market Street. The news racks, the idea was maybe instead of having separate ones, have one that kind of houses various newspapers instead of separate racks all along. There's existing lighting right now that is up to standards. We're looking at maybe adding some pedestrian lighting. Denise, you want to touch on that a little bit with the grant and how that works?
Yeah, as part of the grant, there is some a study to do lighting, and there was also some additional grants that the city was looking at to upgrade lighting. But we'd be looking at pedestrian scale lighting along the corridor. The roadway is already lit, and these would offer the opportunity to put banners or seasonal signs. So another thing that was important to the city in order to add some color to the area.
And then the bike racks that we talked about at the various intersections on the side street. There's a few different types, but that'll be, you know, that would be essential to this redevelopment. Other trees we talked about. Again, there's some healthy ones, there's some not so healthy ones, and some that are missing. The parking, I know the city is also in the process of redoing parking meetings along within the city with the mobile app that would be in conjunction with these meters. So you would actually use your phone to go through and pay for the parking, as opposed to using, I believe these have an option to still pay by cash. But the city's going to the mobile app. So we'll incorporate these to be consistent with the rest of the city improvements. And then seasonal parklet consideration, which before COVID, it was seasonal, but now it seems like there's more and more of this happening, even on a temporary basis. So that's being considered by the design team to see ideal locations where that might be possible. Again, we're trying not to take away any parking, trying to keep safety. So there's a lot that goes into the consideration of the location and also what furnishings are used. So that's the project in a nutshell. I don't know if anybody has anything to add or if we just want to open it up.
We can open it up to questions. If you see any questions come in, I don't see them, Mike. I'm not sure if you're seeing. If anyone has any questions, they can ask them now.
Yeah, I don't see any. I would think they'd pop up on this comments box on the Facebook Live, but I don't see them.
I see a couple here, Mike.
You do? Where am I looking wrong?
Well, not sure about that, but I could read them off if you like.
Sure.
We have one from Father Jack Custer, St. Michael's Cathedral. He says, around Bergen and Market Street, St. Michael's Cathedral provides and maintains trash receptacles, which an employee of ours empties daily. And another comment. There is already not enough parking on weekends for businesses on Market Street. Is there any plan to attract new clientele or any plan to attract new clientele to Market Street? Must find a way to provide additional parking. At present, double parking is endemic, especially on weekends.
The parking, like I said, the goal of this is to not take away any parking that's already exists. For future parking, I believe, I don't know if anybody from the city is on, can respond to this. There's a parking garage, Charlie?
Yeah, I know they're actively, looking into that. I can't really comment on it. I don't know enough about it, but I know that's been in the discussion, at least conceptually at some of our meetings, that I know that they're looking and in the process, I think, of developing parking off-site in the nearby area. I know one of the things we were considering was wayfinding signage, that would then tie in with this project to this additional, remote or nearby parking areas. So that may be something that we can work in to kind of feed people back and forth.
While we're waiting for any questions to come in to expand on the wayfinding, we'll work with the city and also have additional wayfinding to different parks and interest areas within the city. Those will be incorporated into the project.
Yeah, I see some other comments. The parking is really hard to find. But just to reiterate that this effort is not going to produce any net loss of parking on Market Street. Let's see, any project that seeks to attract more traffic to Market Street must address the existing traffic flow problems. The two problem spots are the left turn from Route 21, exit 12 onto Dayton Avenue, and the left turn from Dayton Avenue south onto Monroe. So we can take a look at those locations and see if there's any bearing that they might have on what we're doing here, but just within our project limits, it's really a project of aesthetic improvement and improving the conditions for just walking around and being a pedestrian. But we'll certainly take a look. Another comment here, making it easier and safer for cyclists to arrive might take away some of the traffic. Another one related to that, is there any bike lane on Market Street for the project? So again, sort of, our project is limited to on the corridor, really building face to building face. And where we've added the bicycle corrals, I think it would be worth taking a look at those. And if any citizens have ideas on whether or not those are located well, if we could maybe shift them over a block, or where you think they would best serve cyclists now, that would be valuable input. In terms of a bike lane on Market Street, we looked at that, and there's the unfortunate reality is that it's just not wide enough for us to fit that kind of facility. It's a good maintenance question here. Will there be city employees specifically charged with maintaining the streetscape, sweeping, emptying trash, etc.? I can't speak, we can't speak for the city and how they're going to plan to maintain this, but certainly it's a good time to bring that up and make sure we have that conversation. Okay, and I see a reply from Rick Fernandez, city administrator, that there are currently crews that sweep Market Street out of Public Works, and that the mayor wants to make sure that that service continues. It's a question. What about the several vacant lots along Market Street, some of them seemingly too small to build on? What about vacant storefronts? I think the answer to that might be that this project is hoped to be one of the first steps in, just ensuring that Market Street is and remains an attractive place to develop a new building and open and run a business.
I just wanted to add that if you're just joining us, we did a brief presentation at about 6:10, and we'll do another one probably about 7 o'clock. Well, and we're waiting for questions to come in. They're coming in through Facebook Live. There's a little bit of delay from when we're seeing them, and we're answering them as they do come in. So if anybody does have any questions, you can ask them now through Facebook Live. We'll also ask the city to put the presentation board up on the website and with a link for you to email any questions. We'll have that up probably for 2 weeks, maybe till July 28th, and we can answer any questions. just to add, outreach will continue throughout the process. There'll be a 2-week period now where we're asking for any input on the current presentation board, but in final design, public outreach will also be included, and we'll do a formal public information center with every intention. Hopefully we could be face to face at that time. But the city has also put out flyers. So if there's any questions on the project, it's really an open process. Well, we're waiting for other questions to come in. Charlie, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about the street trees? And we apologize for the performance of this information center. Usually we are face to face and we have a continuous dialogue. There's a little bit of delay in when we're receiving some of the questions. So while we're waiting for any to come in, maybe we could just talk a little bit about some of the existing trees and the thoughts on for enhancing some of the tree
Yeah.
plantings.
Sure, yeah. Hey, Mike, do you want to zoom in on that down below in the tree section? Yeah, so just a little bit more about, right now, at least currently, there are about 23 trees in the corridor. And as Mike mentioned, I think he mentioned earlier, we're really not intending to remove any unless it's dead, essentially. But then we're adding 25 new trees, and these would all be, fairly upright trees, not large trees, smaller trees, just appropriate for the conditions they're going to be in. One thing we're doing is if there were any trees that had been removed, there are a few locations where there was a tree that had been removed and that's not going to be replaced. It's going to be added to just basically become sidewalk. There are a couple instances where that is the case because we're trying to spread out with the new trees to kind of spread them equally within the corridor to try to give it better balance. Because right now there were some concentrated areas with trees, and so that was part of the effort. And then also I'd point out that with the new tree pits, currently it's just an open pit and the sidewalk is pretty narrow. So one of the things we wanted to do was put in tree grates to at least provide some additional, foot space or accessible space as much as possible within that corridor of the sidewalk, because it's just not the widest sidewalk, and to kind of promote circulation, better circulation, we thought that would be the least we could do to improve that, or at least make that a little bit better.
along here, the green, that's where most of the trees, the existing trees are located at this time. So the idea is to kind of spread it along that whole corridor.
I think it would also be good to point out that we do have Spanish translation available through the Facebook stream right now. Entonces, si alguien tiene pregunta, estamos aquí y cualquier participante que puede brindar a sus opiniones o hacer preguntas en Facebook.
Hey, Kevin, if you don't mind, I got a message from the city. If you can just do a kind of maybe a brief, you don't have to run through the whole thing, but maybe a brief presentation of the project in Spanish, maybe the limits and just kind of the basic purpose.
Okay. Let's see. Let me just
Not to
dust
put
off
you
a
on the
little bit.
spot.
All right. Here we go. Okay. Este proyecto está aquí en Market Street y quiere mejorar las condiciones de árboles y luz y hacer no sé, mejorar. I'm sorry, I'm not sure, Mike. I'm prepared to go through with it. A
Okay.
bit tough right now, but
All right. Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. strange. Usually at a public meeting, there'd be a lot of chatter and walking around and smiles, a little bit different atmosphere.
Need some background music, Mike.
If you're just joining us, we were waiting for any questions from a presentation we had at 6 p.m., about 6 p.m. We'll do a presentation again at 7 p.m. and then open it up for questions and answers again. So right now we don't see any questions coming in. So if you bear with us at about 7 p.m. It was advertised, we'll do a brief presentation again. Okay, Mike, you want to start our 7 p.m. presentation? We'll open it back up from the beginning.
Sure. So for anybody just joining us, I'm Mike Shine with NV5. We're a design consultant working with the City of Passaic for Market Street Streetscape Enhancement Improvements Project. The project is funded through a 2014 federal grant, which includes construction fees and engineering design fees. There's 2 phases, preliminary engineering and final design. It's facilitated through the New Jersey Department of Transportation local aid. The project started last year, 2019. The project purpose is to enhance the Market Street commercial corridor, the east side of City of Passaic, which is currently experiencing a redevelopment of residential and commercial developments and recent zoning changes. The intent is to brighten up and enrich the corridor with site furnishings, design treatments, including seating areas, planters, decorative lighting, bike racks, colored pavement improvements, trees, and benches, to name a few. The purpose of the Public Information Center is to give the public and the stakeholders, the adjacent property owners, the opportunity to provide input on the selection and location of the proposed site furnishings. Also, we look for feedback, questions, any concerns that you have as business owners, residents of the improvements project. The project limits are along Market Street from Passaic Street to Monroe Street. Consists of 6 intersections, 3 signalized intersections, 3 which are two-way, and 3 one-way intersections. What we have here is a visual preference board. It's to outline kind of some of the site furnishings that will be incorporated into the project, with some of the key intersections highlighted. The anticipated improvements you can see on the bottom, like I said, planters, benches, receptacles, news racks, lighting, bike corrals, trees, parking meters. The idea here is not to reduce, to eliminate any parking. It's just to really provide, to brighten up the corridor and to provide some street calming effects, which are at the intersections, which I'll show you in a minute. And it's really for a pedestrian, it's kind of a pedestrian thing. It's going to be linked into the park that's nearby with some wayfinding signs to help get people over into this area and to really, to have them experience Market Street and all the places it has to offer, both eating and shopping, and the various cultures that are included along this corridor. The anticipated schedule for this is the preliminary engineering phase, which is what we're in now. We're anticipating to be completed the fall of 2020 this year, with the final design starting in the winter 2021. And the construction anticipated start date of the construction is spring of 2021. With that, I will turn it over to Charlie Cunyon, our landscape architect, and we can go through some of the samples that we have. Here's an example intersection of a two-way intersection. So this is really at the signalized traffic. It's a signalized intersection. And if I blow this up, you can kind of see what we're thinking about here. Charlie, if you want to go through and explain kind of the idea here, the furnishings, the bump outs, the painted curb extensions.
Sure. Okay, yeah, so we've got, this is right, an example intersection. This is the two-way street, which we have Passaic, Mercer, and Monroe will all, this is a depiction of what those streets would look like with the painted bump outs, which as Mike mentioned, we're not losing any parking with that. It's essentially, they extend along Market Street for about 25 feet from the stop, the crosswalk, which is kind of a per code, a space that really that can't have parking for site obstruction purposes anyway. So we're kind of making use of that space to provide a little more of a pedestrian feel and traffic calming impact, is kind of how Mike mentioned. You'll see on this two-way street, on the side street, not on Market Street itself, but on the side street, we don't carry the bump outs, or at least the painted asphalt areas around to the side. There just isn't the room, the width within the street on those to do that. When we get to the one-way streets, there is room, so we can kind of carry that painted bump out area around to the sides. In fact, and that's where you'll see we provide some bike storage at those streets. But the curbs aren't changing here, so this is basically the existing curb alignment that you see at these intersections. And we've got new crosswalks striped here as well as stop bar and just some additional painting just to clean up the intersection. Furnishings at each corner, we've got trash receptacles, and we've also introduced benches and planters at each of these. You can see, just before we leave this, Mike, if they look to the right there, that photo happens to be a kind of a photo sim in Hoboken. On the right of the screen, adjacent to this intersection, you can see kind of other than the kind of the beacon, they've got some deflectors here, those reflective white vertical kind of deflectors there. I don't think we'll have those, but that pavement kind of gives you an idea of how that space is extended a little bit. It shortens the crosswalk, which helps in safety and provides traffic calming.
One other thing I would add to that that I didn't mention is these ramps, the handicap ramps um, at the intersections. I don't know if handicap's the correct word, but we're checking these for ADA compliancy, which is the American Disabilities Act. It has to do with slopes coming from the road up and then the cross slopes on the sidewalk itself. So any of those that need to be improved and brought up to standards as part of this project will also be taken care of under this project. This is an example of one-way intersection. The bump outs, the painted bump outs curb extensions do extend around the corner. There's room for them. Again, shortening the travel distance for the pedestrians crossing the block. Also a location that we identified for the bike corrals. They're kind of tucked away, safe. Charlie, if you want to expand on this one a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we're able to extend the painted area on the side street, which is nice. I mean, you can see how short that crosswalk is, and just in this graphic alone here, definitely shortens that time up. Also, the bike corral shown in the bottom right, that gray rectangle, houses about 8 to 10 bicycles, and we've got that kind of integrated into the overall corridor in 3 different locations right now. And I think Kevin mentioned a good point earlier in one of the questions as far as feedback. If anybody has any additional feedback they want to provide on the best locations or a preferred location that they feel in their daily use, that'd be great to get that kind of feedback today. And again, you'll see here up on the sidewalk, you'll see the new furnishings proposed. The little red circles are Spider-Man cans, as Mike identified them earlier. And we've got benches and planters as well here in this location.
Then at Mercer Street, we have the bus stop. That the one in this direction right now is on this side. We're proposing to move it to the other side of the intersection and have an in-lane bus stop. Charlie, you want to hit that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's a preferred location. The far side stop for transit is a preferred location by transit. It's also a safer application for a problem that can arise when a bus comes up and stops in advance of a signalized intersection, and someone needs to and wants to go around it. They can run through the intersection kind of blind, and there's a kind of an option, or at least a chance that there could be an accident. Somebody, trying to cross the crosswalk in front of the bus that would get hit by a passing car that's trying to get around them. So they like to have the bus stop on the far side so the crosswalk is in clear view of people behind the bus as they approach. And it's just one of those things that we thought we'd take advantage of this, what we're doing here, and kind of correct that. But you'll see it does provide a long space there, offset from the curb, where kind of that was basically the parking strip, but we're not removing any parking in this location. Also point out here, we've got a little bit more opportunity for benches, showing the news rack at this location, as well as some planters, and also just some benches and so forth. So yeah, this spot here provides a little bit more buffer, since we have such a long painted stripe for the bus zone area, I guess I'd call it. There's a little bit more of a buffer space on the sidewalk, so we can get a few more benches up there, and it's more comfortable for somebody to be up there, kind of with that separation from traffic that you get in this case.
Charlie, I see one of our incoming questions here is, what is a bus bulb?
A bus bulb. That is that that is that blue defined color that you see there, that painted space there. That's a bus bulb. Basically, it sometimes they are also curbed with sidewalk, and it's kind of a bump out or a bulb out, as you might refer to it. In this case, we're only doing a painted bus bulb. So, but it's a space then therefore that moves over and for access onto the bus itself. It kind of bumps out from the curb.
So one of the advantages of that is it enables the bus to stop in the travel lane. So the bus does not have to make a turning movement to approach the curb, which may enable us to add a parking space or two. No promises yet. And we also need to coordinate, we are coordinating with NJ Transit bus operations to make sure that they would be okay with this configuration. But if it, were to be approved, it would smooth some of the bus movements out and make things just a little more spacious on the sidewalk. So it'd be a simple improvement that could hopefully do some good.
If I zoom back out here, along the corridor, I know we mentioned it a couple times, but for anybody that's new, there's trying to add some trees. As you can see along the corridor, the green trees, green symbol, are existing trees, and the orange are new trees. So you can see there's several blocks that have no trees right now that we're looking to plant and spread out along the corridor. As you move along Market Street, you can see the green in this area, mid-block or mid-project limits, I should say. There's a lot of existing trees, but it's really at the end of each end of the corridor where there's not as many. So part of this is to add trees, again, just to enhance the area and go hand in hand with the new improvements. These are some of the site-specific or specific furnishings that we've looked at and discussed with the city. Planters, benches, the garbage cans, the Spider-Man cans, it's my favorite. That has the city logo, very neat. Centralized newspaper racks as opposed to individual racks all separated throughout the corridor. The lighting right now along the roadway meets all the standards for lighting. We're looking, depending on the funding, to add possibly pedestrian lights, if not now, in the future. The city is looking at that to enhance the sidewalk and brighten that area. It also has the opportunity to add banners that can be for holidays, for fairs, for street fairs, for any of that kind of advertising. And then here's the different bike corrals that can be used at those locations that we identified on the plan. Several different types, and that's why, again, another reason for the Public Information Center is to try to get some feedback from the property owners, the business owners, on preferences. Charlie's trees. The new parking meters that go are handled by the mobile app. that the city is starting to unveil at other locations within the city. And consideration for parklets, whether it's seasonal, well, I guess it would have to be seasonal, but and again, this would be strategically located as to not impact any of the existing parking. Anything to add there, Charlie?
All right.
Kevin?
I see a question here of why are the bike racks clustered at Hudson, Bergen, and Essex streets? Mike, if you could zoom in on that example intersection, the one on the right. So, well, here's Passaic Street, and this one does not have a bicycle rack, bike corral. It's because Passaic Street has two-way vehicular travel. So the curb extensions that we're proposing do not wrap around the corner, whereas here in this example, the cross street is one-way travel, goes on the page up to down. So we have space along the face of the curb of the cross street to wrap the curb extension all the way around the corner, and that creates kind of a safe little nook where we can place the bicycle corral. So that's where we arrived with it, but we certainly welcome any input that would help us redirect the location of these bicycle corrals to a more usable location.
I'll zoom in and walk through the plan a little slow so people can see.
Stand over there.
In reviewing the questions, it seems like everybody's biggest concern seemed to be the parking and the traffic. Which is also always a concern, in any corridor. But certainly, as we said earlier, the idea is to not eliminate any parking. Certainly don't want to make any situation worse. If people are experiencing double parking, I think the one person mentioned, anyone is just joining us, we're just waiting for questions. If there's anybody that just came on and wants a quick overview of the project, feel free to ask.
Mike, I see a good question for our team here. It says, the plan seeks to enhance retail and residential quality on Market Street, but just one block west of the corridor, First Street, is devoted almost entirely to wholesale food companies with lots of deliveries and 18-wheelers. Is anyone giving any thought to the interaction and potential collision of these two very different purposes?
Hey, Denise, you have any input on that one? Or they're concerned with the, I guess on First Street, it's more of wholesale foods with deliveries with tractor trailers and the impact of that kind of operation with a streetscape traffic calming project a block away.
The intent of this project wasn't necessarily traffic calming. It was more streetscape geared towards the pedestrians. So with the original grant, I think the city would have to answer that. I think that's a broader question, more for the neighborhood than this corridor. But the intent on this corridor was a streetscape project. I'm not sure if they're asking questions about those vehicles going through these intersections or just the difference between the two corridors.
Yeah, that's a good point because the traffic pattern shouldn't really change. And you're right, this was more streetscape and improvements to the aesthetics while providing additional safety for pedestrians. So just to recap, if anybody's joining us new, we gave 2 presentations on the project, and we're just waiting for questions, which can always be followed up after the meeting as well with the city, and then they'll pass them on to us and we can get answers. Oh, any latecomers out there have any questions? Type them in just the chat window there, and we'd be happy to answer them. Well, just to recap, this is a project called the Market Street Streetscape Enhancement Project. It's to improve the Market Street corridor. Site furnishings, benches, bike corrals, trees, planters, ADA ramps at the intersection, very important. The intent is to enrich the corridor and really draw people downtown to this area that has a lot of great shops and restaurants for people to enjoy. I guess any questions that come into the city, if you can forward them to us, we can get responses. And we appreciate everybody that did joining us tonight. Again, typically this is done in person. There's display boards. It's kind of, you walk around, you can discuss the project. It's a little bit livelier than what we've all become accustomed to on Zoom meetings. But hopefully it informed everybody of what's going on, what the plan is, and hopefully it's an accepted project by the public to really enhance that corridor. Well, it's 8 o'clock. I think that wraps up our Public Information Center for the night. We appreciate everybody coming for the questions. And like I said, if you have any questions, you can submit them to the city. They'll forward them to us, and we can get some answers if there's any issues that people have. Thanks to everybody. Thanks for the city for hosting this. We appreciate it. DOT, thanks for the support, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a good night.